In the business world, we are often inundated with a hustle culture. Stay up all night and get up before the sun rises to make the dream happen. In order for your business to thrive, you're going to have to sacrifice everything else in your life. And then somehow, as achievers, as doers, we take that on and we live by it. And we sacrifice the wrong things and we burn the candle on both ends. So while your business may be thriving, you aren't. And you're this close to burnout. You know that the current pace that you are operating in is not sustainable long term. So what do? There's a lot of different variables to consider. There's a lot of different ways that we could approach this. There's a lot of different mindsets and beliefs that have to be shifted in order to believe that you can thrive and your business can thrive. But let's just get really practical for a minute. Let's just get down to the looking at your daily task list type practical. When I was building a business and I had toddlers, I no longer have toddlers, but toddlers and young elementary school, I would have meetings, I'd be teaching webinars, and the door to my office was right behind me. And so I had to teach my kids that when the door is closed, mommy's in a meeting, mommy's doing teaching. That didn't really work. Closing the door, it wasn't enough of a signal to communicate what mom was doing on the other side of the door was important, because to them, being hungry is important. Fighting over the remote is important. So I created a stoplight signal, red, yellow, and green, and I put a little clothespin on it. The red light was, do not come in here unless you are bleeding, in pain, or super sick and it's an emergency, medical emergency. And I had to define it that way. The yellow light was, proceed with caution. And then I had a list of questions. Are you hungry? Here are your snack options. Do you want permission for something? If I said yes to it earlier today, you can do it again today. Anyway, I gave them a list of options to go through. And then green light was that they could come in at any time. It took a little practice and it took a little work to train ourselves to operate with this stop signal, but it helped to redefine what was important in my kids' minds for them to open up the door and barge in. It did work over time, but it took a bit of prioritizing and it took a little bit of training. So what I'm talking to you about and why I told you that story today is because I think that you have to build a stop signal in your life. You have to define and train yourself to identify when is it important for me to go and when is it time for me to slow and when is it time for me to say no. That being said, you and I need to have an action plan that is no longer putting out fires and prioritizing our time based on somebody else's definition of important. Even if somebody else thinks it's urgent, does that mean that it is urgent to us? You've probably heard, hey, not my circus, not my monkeys, or your emergency is not my emergency. We can say that and it sounds great, but do we operate that way within our businesses? I would venture to say, based on the many people that small business owners specifically, that I've worked with and talked to, many operate more on the hustle culture without stop signals and less on the prioritized of importance and urgency and challenging themselves on a regular basis to define what that actually means. So what I want to challenge you to do today is to think of the word important. And I want you to get on the same page with me as to what that actually means. If everything is defined in your business as important, if everything on your list is defined as important, then it kind of loses the definition of important, correct? Important insinuates that something takes higher priority than something else. And I think what happens is we train ourselves to believe that all things are important and many things are urgent. And that's what causes us to burn the candle at both ends. So what I want us to agree on today is that our actions need to be prioritized by important. We need to redefine what important actually is and agree that if everything's important, then nothing is important. Now, I wanted to prove to you that you do have the ability to choose what is important and what is not. Okay, let's start super easy. Let's say that your kids haven't eaten all day, okay, and it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon and they are starving and hangry and cranky and meltdowns are ensuing. You have two options to feed them. You've got a whole bunch of candy, maybe it's leftover from Easter baskets, or you have leftover chicken and veggies from dinner last night. You haven't grocery shopped. Are you going to fill their plate with a whole bunch of candy, or are you going to put chicken and veggies on their plate? You're going to choose chicken and veggies, right? Why? Because nutrition at this point is more important than preference or appetite. Okay, easy, right? You would choose nutrition. Here's another one. If you have 5 minutes to get yourself ready and prepped and get out the door, you are likely going to prioritize wearing a bra over putting on your earrings if you've just got a couple of minutes, right? Priority, importance. There's certain things that you would probably put above other things for that scenario. Okay, here's another example. You're on vacation and you only have 1 day left, but you've got multiple things that you wanted to do when you were on vacation. It's very likely that you will prioritize what you do on that day based on what you deem is important. Is it important to you to take the consideration of your family in? Is it important to you that you relax? Is it important to you that it's a high fun factor? Is it important to you to do the educational historical thing because you've always want to see it? Is it important to you to experience something new that you've never experienced before? Based on what you deem is important, that will inform the choice that you make in how you spend your last day on vacation. Okay, now I'm going to get serious. We went from like, oh yeah, I can see where this is going, to something that is bigger and deeper, because I know that your business is important. And I know that it's difficult sometimes to choose between one thing or another, or to even consider the idea of eliminating something off of your list. I get that. I really do. Where it feels like, Jamie, I honestly cannot take anything off of this list. I understand. And so I want to get serious for you and tell you this example. My brother recently, he's always been a dog lover, and some of you can relate to that, where your dogs are your family. And for my brother, his dog was his best friend. Best friend. Just they had a bond and had gotten each other through some life. And so they were one. But his dog was a rescue dog and had lots of insecurity issues. And he has 3 kids. When his dog became unsafe for his children, he had to make the choice. My dog, my best friend, or my children. He chose his children. Didn't make the decision easy. Still isn't easy, but he knew instinctively what was more important. And he did make a sacrifice. And so sometimes sacrifice is a part of the decisions that we make in where we put our time. Can we agree to use and change some words in relationship to time? We like to say we spend time. I spent time on marketing today. I spent time on content creation today. I spent time in collaboration with my team. Can we change the word to I am investing time into marketing today? I'm investing time into collaboration with my team. And here's why. Because spending, just like with money, once you spend it, it's gone. Right? You can make more money, but can you make more time? No. So if we spend time, that puts us in a dangerous spot of never getting that time back. But if we invest time, then that means you are using time in such a way that there will be a greater return. So you are stewarding your time well. I want us to get to a place where our to-do lists is us choosing where we are investing our time, because we know the level of importance and priority and the return that we'll receive by the investment. Okay, so here is a practical framework for how we can look at our to-do list. If you've read the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, then you've heard this before. It can seem impossible, but it's not. Let me walk you through it. There are 4 quadrants that we could categorize our to-do list with. The top quadrant, top left, is urgent and important, meaning there's a deadline and it has to happen in a timely fashion, and it's very important. There's high stakes with this, and it's aligned with priority. Okay. Then there is the quadrant that is important but not urgent. Okay. Quadrant 3 would be that it's urgent but not important. And then quadrant 4 is it's not urgent and it's not important. Now, quadrant 4 doesn't necessarily mean that you have nothing, that we want to work to get nothing in it, because there are some things maybe that you have on your home improvement list. Is it urgent? Well, I suppose if your pipes are broken, yes. But if it's just aesthetic, then it's not urgent and it's not important. Now, if at some point it becomes important to you for some reason, you could move it around. But you're going to have some things there, and just get honest with yourself about what should actually go down into that quadrant. Okay, but here's where the tricky part is in that quadrant number 1, why is it urgent? Who decided that it was urgent? Sometimes we overcommit, and that's a whole nother time and a whole nother conversation about being overcommitted, and also the amount of margin that you allow in your life and that you create for yourself in your schedule. A whole nother conversation. So sometimes the urgency that we have is overcommitment to the wrong things, or to too many things, or to good things that are going to get in the way of the great things, or you have not created enough white space and margin in your life. Sometimes we are allowing other people, like my stop signal, to determine what's urgent and needs to happen right now. We don't have boundaries. That's another area that could keep us from having too many things, or could cause us to have too many things in the urgent and the important category. What I want to encourage you to do is I want you to take time to define what is actually important, meaning that if you invested time in it, it will help you, others, or your business thrive. Now, there's also responsibilities. You need to pay bills. Okay, those are also going to fall into the urgent and important categories occasionally, depending on our due dates and how we time block our schedules. Okay, but I think if you were to take your list of to-dos right now and really try to determine what's important, you're going to run into one of 2 categories, one of 2 problems. One is you're going to think everything is important, or 2, you're going to say these are all important right now, and you are excusing them based on the urgency factor and what you feel like you are committed to, what you feel like you have to do. You're going to run into a belief system that boxes you into the hustle culture. Okay, so you might deal with the mindset, you might deal just with, I haven't really prioritized or taken the time to evaluate and prioritize. So you got to ask yourself that question. Why have I deemed this being important? Why have I prioritized this? Am I prioritizing the short term over the long term? Right? What am I sacrificing? Because if something becomes important, something else is going to become less important in your life or in your business. So am I pushing something down that should not be pushed down? Okay. The next thing that you have to ask yourself is the urgency factor. If you do have margin issues, if you do have I'll take on other people's emergencies, if you do have an issue delegating, if you do have an issue of overcommitting, that's going to increase that quadrant, right? And so obviously learning to time block, learning to protect your time. We're going to talk in another video for another time about how to time block according to your energy and how different tasks will take from you in different ways, and learning to address that with yourself and utilize that to your advantage. Okay, but my hope for you is that as you identify what is actually important, that you begin the work of moving things to different quadrants. And as you move them to different quadrants, then I want you to think of these 3 Ds. You've defined what's actually important. So then now you need to decrease what is actually urgent. commitments and deadlines over commitments. Why have you made that urgent? Decrease that. And then I want you to delegate what can be delegated. How could you teach somebody else to do what you don't really need to do? If somebody can do it 80% as good as you, delegate it and they can grow into it. Okay. If it isn't highest, top important for you to be involved, delegate it, teach it, duplicate yourself. And then the last D would be drop some things. There are some things in certain seasons that you've got to let go of. We have limitations, and that is okay. Identify the important things in this season and invest your time into them. I promise you that the return, especially when we are aligning our heart with God's heart for our lives and for the people in it, and when you determine that priority and the level of importance, then your investment will have great return. And not only will your business thrive and the people that you serve, but you can thrive as well. Now, if you find yourself going, oh my gosh, I don't even have the time to figure this out. When I look at this, it's overwhelming. I don't even know how to get to the place of clarity that would allow me to move things around or to delegate. I don't know how to objectively determine urgent and important in this season. That's what I'm here for. Some people call me a clarity coach. I can help you get personal clarity, then that can feed and fuel your business clarity, and then can inform the decisions that you make about the time you invest. So reach out. I'd be happy to help you get some clarity about this and help you thrive.